The Buddha talked about 4 different groups that we can break up experience in. And what experience means, it means as a human being, how do we actually experience life? This is how we experience it before thinking and judgments and likes and dislikes. How do we experience that? So there's 4 different groups, and if we break it up into those 4 different groups, it starts to make more sense. It gets easier to see what's going on. The first group, the first group, the third group, and the 4th group, those 3 groups can be seen as completely separate, interacting with each other but completely separate, definite groups. The second group overlays those 3 groups. The second group overlays those 3 groups and influences our relationship to those 3 groups. And so I'll explain what they are. First, what we need to do is when we're meditating, we need to be able to separate and clarify our experience. Now, some of you may be new to meditation. A lot of you have been meditating for quite a while now. Can you remember back when you first started meditating how confusing everything was? Can you remember you sit down to meditate and you think, oh, I'm going to have lofty and peaceful states, just really deep peace. And you sit down, close your eyes, and then just utter chaos. Just the feelings in your body, just the thoughts going 100 miles an hour, the sounds are distracting you, tensions jumping all over the place. Yeah? Sounds familiar? Oh, this is just horrible. That's how we kind of feel, isn't it? It's just like, oh, if anything, it can feel like we're going insane.
Everything sort of gets magnified, doesn't it?
Mindfulness magnifies. Mm-hmm. It does magnify, yeah. Yeah, so basically we're seeing what's really going on. We're seeing the state of our own mind. It's a mess. So I come into a class and I give you meditation instructions. Oh, watch thoughts. How can you watch thoughts? I'm thinking the thoughts. Yeah? Oh yeah, just separate that emotion, that feeling of anxiety. That's separate from the thought. That's separate from all these different things I'll say. You go, well, how do you do that? It's all just mixed up together, isn't it? It's just a mince. When we haven't cultivated the mindfulness, we look at it and everything is just this mess together. So what we're doing in this practice is we need to separate. And as you found in your practice, have you found that as the mindfulness is increased, suddenly you can go, oh, there's a thought. Oh, there's a sound. The sound and the thought about the sound are completely separate. They're not the same thing. The feeling of dislike that comes up in your body is completely separate from the sound and separate from the thought about it. Yeah? You start to see this, it starts to break up. My father, he's passed away now, but he was a hoarder. I'm the opposite. Linda has to nail everything to the floor. When he passed away, I had to clean out the house, or I was cleaning out the house. Had to clean out inside the house, under the house, in the roof of the house, in the garage. He grew up as a child of the Depression. Nothing was thrown away, absolutely nothing. When he was alive, I'd put things out on the footpath for the rubbish collection. And as quickly as I could put them out there, even when he could hardly walk, he'd almost drag himself up there. He would be dragging it back down into the house again. And if other people had rubbish piles in front of their place, he'd be dragging their stuff under the house as well. When it came to sorting all this out, it was a mess. I mean, where do you start? This is just wall-to-wall stuff. You kind of look at it and you go, there's no way I can get through this. No way I can get through this stuff. So what I did was I started off by sorting it into groups. I put all the recyclable metals together. All the furniture together. Clothes together. Plates, cups, bowls together. Jewelry together. So all in different separate groups. Once they were in separate groups, I could kind of see, oh, this is what's here, oh, this is how much of this we have, this is how much of that we have. You could start to see it. But then I had to sort it into smaller groups. Some of them were expensive metals. Some of them were metals that just weren't that good, that had to be thrown away. Others were metals that I might be able to use. Yeah? Go to the clothing. Some were good clothing. Some were worn out clothing and just rags. Others might be able to be used by other people. Just different groups. The plates, you've got the fine china, and then you've got the plastic plates, and then you've just got the normal plates. So broke them up into smaller groups again. It was only after those groups were broken up into smaller groups they can say, oh, okay, this can go to Vinnie's, right? This can be passed down through the family. This can be sold. This can be given away. This can be. When I originally went in there and it was all a mess, I had no idea of what can be done with what. But as things were broken down into one group, it got clearer. Then when it got broken into smaller groups, it started to become very clear, this we keep, this we get rid of. This is what you're doing in the practice. Exactly the same thing. We need to think in terms of breaking up the groups, working out what's actually going on. This is what Vipassana is. It's breaking up into groups and then breaking those groups into smaller groups. Okay, does that make sense? The first group is the body group. Yeah, the Buddha called it Kaya Vipassana, the body group. So, the body group doesn't mean our body. It doesn't mean what I see in a mirror. It doesn't mean what other people judge me by when they look at me. The body group is how do you actually experience your body? How do you actually know that you have a body? Something tells you that you have a body. Something tells you where your body is placed in the world. Something is telling you. And that something is the sensations in your body. At the moment you're sitting. Because the sensations in your body are in a certain order, you know that you're sitting. Your brain is interpreting that and saying, I am sitting. Yeah? It might say, I am sitting and this is uncomfortable. But it's those sensations that your brain is in touch with. It's those sensations that your brain is using to know that. And this is really important because those sensations are before perception. Those sensations are how your brain is interpreting the world. So that group, we know that, don't we? What's some of the sensations that you can know that tell you that you're sitting or what your body's doing at the moment?
Hardness.
Hardness. Yeah, you feel hardness and softness. What other sensations are telling you what your body's doing at the moment?
Tingling.
You can feel tingling?
Heat, cold.
Yeah, heat, cold. I can feel some tightness in the back.
Yeah.
So the tightness in the back is telling me that I'm upright. If I was laying down, it would be a different feeling. Yeah. The coolness or warmth is telling me what's happening in the room and what's happening in my body. Because my throat's upset, there's more warmth in my body. So that's telling me that, and my brain interprets that. Yeah, that's what's happening. So that's the body one. So we first start off with the body group. We start off by just feeling our whole body, but then start to break that into smaller groups. Oh, this is coolness, this is hardness, this is whatever. Now, hardness and coolness are not the same thing. Yeah? Warmth and dryness, are they the same thing? No. Yeah? Tension and tightness. Right? All these different sensations, they're actually all separate from each other but interacting with each other. When they're in a certain order, we say, oh, this is happening, that is happening. But what we normally see is a story about them. We don't actually see the sensations. We see the story about them. I'm uncomfortable. This room's too hot. I'm scared of that. There was a show last night on TV about people who are scared of birds. I'm scared of that. So they're seeing a sight and they're scared. But they're not seeing the sensations in their body that are telling them that. They're reacting to them. The next group, the second group, we'll skip over. It's the most important group. The third group is the mind group, Chitta Nupassana, Chitta. The mind. The mind group is separate from the body group, but the mind group and the body group interact. Our task when we're doing this practice is to be able to see clearly the mind group and the body group as two separate things. Not the same, separate, interacting but separate. So how would you, if I've got a pain in my knee, how would I see the mind group? How would I notice that? How would I observe that?
Your mind really zones in on any painful sensations.
You can see the mind group. You can see, so what Linda said, your mind's going towards it. So what you're doing is you're seeing your attention concentrating on something. That's part of the mind group. Awareness is part of the mind group. Your awareness goes up, it goes down. That's part of the mind group. Mindfulness is part of the mind group. Thinking, liking, disliking, all the different mind states you have. Dull, clear, heavy, agitated, sleepy. All the different mind states. But notice they're different from the sensations in your body. When the mind group changes, the body group changes. Your state of mind affects how you feel physically. But they're separate. But we see, in the beginning, we see them as all being the same, but then we start to notice. So really look and notice that it's separate. That what you think about is affecting the feeling in your body. But that feeling, the sensations in your body changing are completely separate from those thoughts about it. They're interacting. And so can you see clarifying, breaking up into smaller and smaller groups? Notice the judge that sits in the back, the judge that sits in the back and judges everyone and everything, including yourself. It's even beyond thought. Thinking can disappear and the judge will still be there, casting its verdict on everything. Very interesting. The judge is very, very deep. Very, very deep. Yeah, liking and disliking. That's mind group. Yeah? The fourth group, the Buddha called Dhamma Nupassana. This is the group of the sense doors, of seeing, of hearing, of smelling, of tasting, of touch, how we listen to the world. And it's also understanding process. We won't even go there, but understanding processes. This causes that, causes that, causes that. Starting to watch how different things condition each other. Starting to get to understand patterns. That's part of that too. The second group can't be separated. It can be separated from all those three groups, but it permeates all the groups. All those groups are just totally separate. They condition each other, but they're separate. But the second group permeates all three groups, and that's Vedana Nupassana. Pleasant or unpleasant. Our main task is to separate the feeling of pleasant or unpleasant from everything. Because it's at that arising of that pleasant or unpleasant feeling that conditions our interpretation of those other three groups. If the sight is unpleasant, what's our reaction? If the sight is pleasant, what's our reaction? If the thought is pleasant, what's our reaction? If the thought is unpleasant, if the mind state is unpleasant, if the mind state is pleasant, the sensations in your body. Vedana goes through everything. Vedana is at the base of all experience. Vedana arises with all experience. All these different groups. And the moment it arises, and it arises like that, the moment you see a sight, hear a sound, smell a smell, think a thought, experience a sensation in your body, there's a Vedana conditioning it. Now, the thing about Vedana, this feeling tone, it is a taste. It is a flavour that permeates the experience. And it's that taste or flavour that makes us move. As human beings, we are moved by pleasant or unpleasant. And so what we do in this practice is we learn to get deeper and deeper and deeper till we see Vedana. And then when we're softening into, what are we softening into? Our relationship to pleasant or unpleasant. Because that's what you're changing your relationship to. Because it's not the other experiences that make you move, it's the pleasantness or unpleasantness. I see a pleasant sight, I want more of it. I see a repulsive sight, I want less of it. And so it's this that conditions every response, every single response in life, everyone. So the Buddha talked about cutting the chain, cutting the link at Vedana. You change your relationship to pleasant or unpleasant taste that is in all experience, then no experience can actually move you. You actually suddenly have choice. You have choice. If you respond to pleasant or unpleasant, then you're being herded like a sheepdog herds sheep. Yeah? Wherever the sheepdog wants you to go, that's where you'll go. No choice. No choice. This is what we're doing in this practice. This is why breaking into groups, body group, mind group, right? Sensory group. Yeah? Break it up. Then in those groups, break those groups up smaller. Yeah? And then see if you can hone in on, see if you can feel, see if you can taste the pleasantness or unpleasantness in the experience. Yeah. And then soften into that, relax into that response to it. That's the key.